Workshop Wednesdays, what you gonna do about it? Workshop Wednesdays, haven't got a clue about it. Workshop Wednesdays, what you gonna do about it? This. Hey, welcome to the Bailey Workshop on the guitar making channel, guitarmaking.co.uk. Yeah, we've got a good one today. Welcome to folks. Thanks for watching. We've got a good one today. Today I'm going to show you how to make a guitar completely from scratch, complete build in time lapse. What I'm going to do is explain as it goes how I did it. To the best of my ability. So it's a 22-minute long film. We're going to try and keep the live stream a little bit shorter than normal today. Yeah, I've just got out of the shower. I look like rubbish tonight. Never mind, you'll get used to it. Stay to the end because after the time lapse we're going to do a little question and answer. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. I'm sure you will. Yeah, I'm going to tell you a little bit about some brand new guitar making tools that we've got. So I'll show you those after the time lapse. Don't go away, folks, and hopefully we'll all learn something today. We've got Carol over there on the master controls. Thanks, Carol. Carol's been a bit poorly, but it's all right. It's not COVID-19. We're hoping she'll be all right.
Bad leg.
She's just got a bit of a bad leg. So she's over there on the cameras and operating the controls. So if you're here for the first time, if you've not been here before, then this channel is all about guitar making, anything to do with making, setting up, repairing guitars, guitar making tools and techniques and all that kind of thing. So if that's what floats your boat, then make sure you click subscribe, like and share and do all the kind of YouTubey stuff. That all helps us a lot. So I found myself feel like a teenager busking again like I used to when I was a kid. I found myself back on YouTube. Instead of playing the guitar, I'm now busking with my guitar making methods. So I'm here showing you how to do stuff, but I'm not doing it for like the good of my own health. Basically, with the current situation, everything, we're also gigging musicians, so all our work's dried up. We also run workshop courses where people come all over the world to my little workshop here in the hills of Ayrshire, and we run workshop courses where people build guitars themselves completely from scratch. But of course we can't do any of that at the moment, so yeah, find myself here on YouTube trying to keep us all busy, and hopefully I'll inspire you to have a go yourself. Hopefully you'll see something and you'll think, yeah, I could do that. So that's what it's all about. That's what I'm here for. I don't like the sound of my own voice, so I'm not here to talk and just ramble. I'm here, what I like to do is get on, do something useful, and then get off. So that's the introduction finished with. Let's get straight on. What I'm going to do is play you this time lapse, right? So this is, it was actually a professionally made film. It's quite old now. It's one of my early films. It was made by our mate Captain Jack Sparrow, who's the I've forgotten his name. Andrew McDonald. He's from Glasgow and he's a fantastic airbrush artist. He's a fantastic artist, and he's also a Johnny Depp lookalike, and he goes around the world doing that kind of stuff. He's all-round general artist, but he's also a filmmaker as well. So he made this film, and it was all paid for by an arts and crafts centre, actually the National Arts Exhibition Centre. Is that right, Carol?
National Arts and Crafts.
National Centre for Arts and Crafts. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we think it was the National Centre for Arts and Crafts. It's called The Hub. They actually commissioned this film because they did a what do you call it? An exhibition on guitar makers of the UK. So they invited me along with, I don't know, maybe 30 other builders. We all exhibited our wares, and they asked me specifically to make a film, which was playing throughout. I think the event lasted for a week or a month, was it? Anyway, it ran for a while, this exhibition, and during the whole thing they had this enormous screen and they were playing this film on a loop. My enormous face, about 10 foot big, so that's the biggest I've ever seen my face. So if you think I've got a big head, that's probably why. So yes, so thank you very much to the Hub, National Centre for Arts and Crafts, or whatever it is you're called, for commissioning this, and thanks to Andy for making it for us, and thanks to you guys for watching. So if Carol's ready, what we're going to do is play the film. Don't play it just yet, Carol. And we're going to put me in a box in the corner, so I'm going to narrate over it. So it's very fast action. We've built a whole guitar in 22 minutes here. There's not a lot of room for pause. So I'm going to be coming at you fast. Before it starts, I just want to say the first thing you'll see is our fretboard going through my sanding machine. Now obviously they're not the type of machines that you're going to have at home. So what I normally tell people about machines is, obviously you're not going to have that kind of thing in your garage unless you've been doing it for a while like me. You really get into it. So what I recommend is you buy your wood. First tip is you recommend you buy your wood ready to work. So that's what we've done on guitar making, is all the wood blanks that you can buy, the neck and the body blanks, are all ready to work on. So I think half the battle is getting your piece of wood flat and straight. And so that's what you're going to see right at the very start. You'll see the pieces of wood whizzing through because it's all super high speed, so it happens very fast. Get the pieces of wood flat and straight, and then we commence with the build, starting with the fretboard. I always start with the fretboard, and we can use the fretboard to mark out the neck and to mark out the body. So, having said all that, brace yourselves, guys. Just clear me throat, have a swig of tea, and we'll ask Carol to press play. Deep breath. So you need to, there we go. So press play, Carol. Thank you. So the first thing you'll see is the machine with the whizzing through, and I've thicknessed it to 6.5mm. Everything on guitars comes from the centre line, so I drew a centre line and we're using the magic double-sided tape to fix it to a pattern to cut the fret slots. Again, you're not going to have this kind of thing at home, so I sell pre-made, ready-to-work fretboards. I think for your first guitar, there's no shame in using a pre-made fretboard. Here you can see me using a template, and I'm using the copy routing technique, profiling, to copy the shape into the fretboard. And then this is my radius machine, putting the radius on the front. I need to chop the ends off, and that's my fretboard made. What about that, eh? And there's the neck going through the sander again. So that's what I do for you guys if you're buying a neck blank from us. Drawing the centre line on, marking out the ends of the neck and the extent of the truss rod slot. And there's me machining the truss rods. So one of the main tools you'll have to use if you're building a guitar is a router. I'm going to be covering that in a couple of weeks, doing a router special. Here's another little jig. I'm using it to surface the headstock. So it's cutting the angle on the headstock. Notice it's a two-part operation. We did the first cut on a bandsaw, and the second cut is on a router. Quite a lot of these jobs are doing two cuts, fine cut, rough cut and a fine cut, and finishing cut. Here's me marking out the neck shape. We tend to use fancy names, so I call it the profile. And when we're cutting out the neck, I usually cut out the side profile first, and then I cut out the front profile. You can do it either way round, to be honest, and it's awkward whichever way round you do it. So, like I say, we use two cuts, rough cuts, and finishing cut. So this is the smooth one with finishing cut. This time I'm using the router. The first cut with the bandsaw, the second cut with the router. See how it cuts the shape. Pattern. So a lot of the skills making the patterns. So we've got a whole section on the course which is just about making the patterns. So Carol's paused it. We've got a question. Go on, Carol.
It's because apparently the audio is a bit louder. Is louder than you speaking. So can you?
Sorry, folks.
Can we use? Yeah. So it's the music on the video because it's got music to it.
The music's a bit loud. Let's turn that down then.
Yeah, and I didn't want to do it. Okay.
Could you hear anything I was saying?
They said you sort of been drowned out a bit.
Could they hear what I was saying though? Mostly. Did they get the gist of it?
Well, I don't know.
Stop it again, Carol, please. Do I need to start again is what I'm saying.
So some of them said it's a bit loud, you can't really hear them talk.
Okay, shall we start again, folks? Would you like me to start again, or should we just carry on from there?
It's only a couple of minutes, isn't it?
Go on then, we'll start
Right,
again.
they've all said that, so let's just go back to the beginning. Sorry. We should have thought of that, shouldn't we?
Okay, let me turn the volume down just to make sure.
Yeah.
I
Right,
did
so
check
now
it,
I
and I
he said
thought it was fine.
it's come up perfect. So
What?
Well, you sorted it once, so
Okay, go on then. Right, we'll start again, folks. Sorry about that.
Some people could hear you fine, some couldn't.
Audio glitch, don't worry. We'll do it again.
And some, well, okay, right.
So,
Hold on.
first of all, you're going to see the piece of wood flying through the sander.
Right, here we go.
And I'm taking it down to thickness. It's actually called thicknessing the piece of wood. So I'm taking it down to thickness. Getting your piece of wood flat and straight is half the battle. Everything on guitars comes from the centre line. So you saw me draw the centre line, and then we use our magic double-sided exhibition tape to stick it to a template for cutting the fret slots. So we use a lot of these templates. This one is for cutting the taper into the fretboard. Now, you're not likely to have those machines at home, so we sell pre-made, ready-to-go fretboards. I think, there's no shame in using a pre-made fretboard for your first guitar. So at least you know it's going to play in tune. So here's my neck. I like to use my fretboard to mark out the neck. And the first thing I'm going to do is the truss rod slot. So I've marked out the length or the extent of the truss rod slot, and then we're going to route it. We always test fit it before we do anything else, although you didn't see me do that. Now we're going to do the headstock angle. It's a two-part operation, a lot of these jobs are. So we did the first cut on the bandsaw, and the second cut is using the router. So this is called surfacing with the router. We're making a level surface. It's actually an angled surface. The router just rests on those two things at the side. And now I'm marking out the shape of the guitar. Now we use fancy names like profile. So here I'm cutting out the side profile and then the front profile. You can do it either way round. It's awkward either way round you do it, but I prefer to do the side profile and then the front profile. As you can see, we're cutting it out roughly, and then we're going to use the two-part process again. This time I'm using a router to copy the shape of the pattern into the neck. And you can see it copying in a second as it copies the shape. So there's a bearing on the cutter which copies the shape like this. So that's one of the secrets of guitar making, is profiling. There's about 4 different types of routing we use. I am going to take you all through that in about 2 weeks time, 2 Saturdays time. We can use the same surfacing technique to thickness the headstock. So here you can see me routing the headstock down to thickness, and using the surfacing technique we can make it exactly the same thickness all the way across, so it's nice and even and flat. So that's the advantage of using the router, is it's accurate and repeatable. That's the whole point. Here I usually use my pedestal drill for this, but I'm just showing you that you don't need a pedestal drill. You can do it on your bench with just an ordinary drill, but I made a drill pattern first and we just drilled through that. So at this stage we're ready to glue the fretboard in, glue the truss rod in, and then obviously while the glue's drying I just put it to one side for a bit, and rather than just wait around I started on the body. So we're using the fretboard to mark it out. So we need to know where the fretboard joins the body, then we can mark the bridge, then we can mark out where the pickups are, and I usually like to mark out the control cavity as well. So we're marking out volume, tone and switch, making sure that nothing's going to interfere with anything else basically. So there we go, just checking. So now we're using these patterns again to copy route the shapes. So on Saturday I'm going to show you how we make these patterns using the bandsaw. Once you've got the pattern, all you need to know is basically how deep to go. So it's all marked out in position, and we clamp it using nice strong metal clamps so that it doesn't move, and then you can just copy the shape. So you can see how you could make any guitar as long as you've got the patterns and you know where they go. Easy peasy. These holes go all the way through, and we drill from the front so that we can locate where the control cavity goes on the back. This cavity goes almost all the way through, but not quite. So we just need to leave enough so that we've got 3 or 4 threads poking through. So you'll see me, now that's as deep as the router goes. So to go deeper than that, we have to take the pattern off, and then we can go 18mm deeper because our pattern's 18mm thick in this case. So now I'm just checking that they all fit. We'll check twice, cut once folks, and then we can do an extra, this is optional, you don't need to do this, but it's a nice cavity for cover plate. So notice that I did all the machining before I cut the shape out. I meet a lot of guys who say, oh, I'm a guitar maker, I'm making a guitar, and all they do is they've cut a shape out of a piece of wood and they think they're making a guitar. Cutting the shape out is the easy bit. We'll come back to that then. Obviously my glue was dry enough to carry on with the neck, so I carried on with the neck. Yeah, so that piece is called the fillet that glues on top of the truss rod. It needs to be planed flat, ready so that we can glue the fretboard on. And we do quite a bit of work on that surface to make sure it's perfectly flat, ready for the fretboard. So we're quite precious about our glue joints here. We like to have invisible glue joints, and you'll notice I was using a couple of pins. We use those pins so that the fretboard doesn't slip while we're putting the clamps on. If the fretboard slips while we're gluing, we come back the next day and it's moved, then you're going to have a neck that's thinner than intended. So here's the second part of cutting out the body. You saw me cut it out on the bandsaw, doing the rough cut, and again this is the second cut using the router, and you can see how accurately and how it makes it easy and repeatable. I'm going to take the pattern off so that I can go deeper because I've maxed out. When you're buying a router, the depth of the cut is one of the things that's important, but I'm going to tell you all about routers in a couple of weeks. So subscribe to the channel folks, don't miss that one. Flip it over to do the reverse cut just to finish it off, and then carry on with the neck. So my fretboard was dry enough to carry on with. So here's just a work board that's supporting the neck so that I can work on it so that it's not bending while I'm working on it. And all I'm doing is I'm working on that fretboard surface. So however well machined or accurately it's made, there's always a certain amount of working by hand. So even if you're using the machines like I do, we always finish off by hand. The machines will get me 70 to 80% where I want to be, but to make it perfect I like to finish everything by hand. Now this is putting the inlays in, which is really easy. We just drill a size for size hole, 3mm dot, 3mm hole, super glue them in and then sand them flat. And that's our fretboard pretty much finished. Now I'm going to carve the neck. What we'll do is come back to the fretboard after the neck's carved. It's better to leave it for a couple of weeks really to let it settle, and then come back and level the fretboard again just to make sure that it hasn't moved. So here's me carving the neck. So it starts off with facets. Whenever you're carving any round shapes, we always start off with getting facets as even as possible and then rounding it off is trivial. It's fairly easy really just to round it off. So 2 side facets. The third facet along the top sets the thickness of the neck, and then we blend it in. Now there's ways to achieve a V profile, vintage V profile, or the C profile, or a D profile on your neck. We go through all that kind of thing on the full course. It's not time for that on this time lapse today. So yeah, there you can see me I'm just double checking that the fretboard hasn't moved since you carved the neck, and then I'm going to go through the grades and sand the fretboard up to 240 grit or 320 grit, so it's sanded to the finest paper, and then prepared for fretting. So we check the depth of the slots, and I file a little V along the top of each slot, and here's me meticulously cleaning out all the dust from the slots. So it's all about preparation. If you don't do your preparation right, then you're going to have a nightmare with your frets. So I like to cut them all to size and then take them out and line them up in a jig, and then we can put them in one at a time. What we do with frets is we put the ends in first, and then we hit the middle in, and as you put the middle in, the ends come out, and there's little tangs on the frets. Dig a little sideways channel so that the end of the frets can't come up. If the end of the frets can't come up, then the middle of the fret can't come up, and the fret's locked in there. Just to make sure, we'll use a bit of super glue, run down underneath the end of each fret, and that just helps to lock it in place. If you ever need to get them out, you can just heat it up with a soldering iron and they come out quite easily. Side dots is one of those jobs. It takes an inordinate amount of time to do. It takes quite a long time to mark them all out by hand and then drill them all. It's quite difficult. One of the more tricky jobs, funnily enough. And you need to incy little fingers. Getting them into the holes is quite tricky. I used to be able to put the glue in 6 necks worth of holes and then get all the dots in before the glue dried off. Don't ask me how. So there's me cleaning up the side of the neck, and notice I'm cleaning up the frets and the dots at the same time, so you didn't have to do it twice. I clean up the dots and the frets at the same time rather than do it twice. And then we put a little angle on the side of the frets. It's a 35-degree angle in case you're interested. Now we're ready to join the neck to the body. Here's another one of those templates. Again, I'll show you how to make these on the course. I'm going to give you an overview how to do it on Saturday. I'll show you how to make these patterns. So we make the hole first, and then we need to basically sand the neck until it fits in. You'll see me just sanding the heel of the neck there until it fits. If you can pick your body up with it, then that's a nice tight fit. It doesn't want to be too tight, because when you put the glue on, it gets just a little bit tighter. And once it's fitted in, then we can set the neck angle. So here you can see my super expensive, highly technical neck angle jig, which is made from 4 bits of scrap wood and a hinge. And we're looking for a height of 16mm above the body there. 16mm, we just got a flash of that. That's to make sure that the strings are right at the right height for the bridge. Everyone's always asking me what neck angle is. I don't care what neck angle is. 1 degree, 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees, who cares? What I care about is does the strings arrive at the right height for the bridge? So I'll show you how to do that when we're setting the neck angle on the course. You just saw me put the radius on the guitar. Surprising what a difference that makes, just running a radius round. Suddenly it becomes a guitar. You have to drill holes for the strap studs, the pickup wires and the jack socket, and then it's just a case of sanding. Now sanding is actually a skill, quite a lot of skill involved in sanding, more than you'd probably think, and it has a lot of effect on the final result of the perceived quality of the guitar. So you want to get your flat bits flat and your round bits round, basically. No lumps on your round bits or your flat bits. A little bit of body shaping or body styling, so a little bit of carving involved there, and you can sand the whole thing by hand, but here I just wanted to demonstrate an air sander, different types of sanders, and you can also use my favourite power sander, This is an electric sander. But quite a lot of skill involved with sanding, believe it or not. So I would recommend you actually do it all by hand, at least for a while, until you get good with a sander. Even when I do use a sander, I always go over it by hand, as you can see. So I use a flat block on the flat bits, and maybe a soft round block like a rubber on the round bits. We always test fit the neck before we glue it, so I was quite happy that was okay, ready to glue in. We're using Tight Bond, in case you're wondering. That's a yellow aliphatic resin. And make sure you meticulously clean up all the glue, because it's really hard to get off while it's dry. So while that was drying, I thought it'd be a good idea to make the cover plate using the same copy routing technique. So profiling, you can see I've made a pattern, same shape, and it's very simple just to copy it, and I've even got the holes drilled. And then we do as much wiring as we possibly can outside of the guitar, because it's quite easy to burn your guitar with a soldering iron, drop something on it. So it's a good idea to make as much as you can. You can see our patent pending. That was made by our friend John Lockett, who was a apprentice here for a while. He's now travelling the world on his motorbike.
Well,
Nice one, John. Oh, he's back now. What? Cheers for that, John. After the neck's glued in, there's a little step there that needs to be removed so that the pickup fits. Just one of those little footery jobs. Now this stage of the operation is called finneting, where we fill all the little holes and make sure there's no scratches or anything, and then we're ready for applying the finish. You can just see me fitting the bridge there. So there's a definite procedure for fitting the bridge. We check 3 times when we're doing the bridge. 3 times. Or even 4. And there's a test fit. Yeah, you don't want to get your bridge in the wrong place, so it's worth double and triple checking. Yeah, last bit of finneting. It's not my favourite word. I didn't make it up. Finneting is what you do just before finishing. Now, the easiest possible finish to apply is a wipe-on oiled finish. So you just wipe it on and wipe it off. Wax on, wax off, just like Karate Kid. I like to do it in areas, so you saw me do the holes first, and then I do the sides, and then the back, and then I like to do the front last, because it's usually the nicest piece of wood. In this case, a nice piece of flamed maple on the front. So you can see how it really brings the grain out. Not quite as good as a full gloss, but pretty good all the same. That's my string tension simulator, which we'll cover on another Workshop Wednesday one time. The string tension simulator to accurately level the frets. We can level the frets as if the strings are on. So we're simulating the string tension. We can level the frets as if the strings are on. It's a little bit more accurate. It's not essential, but it's just a little, an extra little touch that a professional guitar maker can do. You can make and build one of your own string tension simulators if you look that up. I bought mine from Stuart McDonald. Get a lot of my stuff from those guys from America. They're expensive, but they are the best. In a bit I'm going to tell you about a UK supplier as well, so don't go away, folks. So once the frets are levelled, there's about an hour and a half's work to do. Levelling them puts a flat spot on the top, so they need to be recrowned. Then they need to be, the fret ends need to be dressed, they need to be sanded and polished. So all that takes about an hour and a half, and then we finally give the fretboard a little clean up, because the fretboard can get scratched during all those operations. So the last thing is just to give the fretboard a clean up, and then I use the finest wire wool money can buy, basically, to give the frets and the fretboard a clean up all at the same time, and then a coat of lemon oil on the fretboard just to finish it off. So that's the woodwork done, and now we're into final assembly. So this was like the next day, after it had been drying for overnight, we assemble. It's fairly self-explanatory really, just screwing the bits on. If you know a little bit about guitars, you wouldn't have any problem just doing that. We've done as much wiring as we can outside the guitar, so we've only got a few wires to attach. That's the pickup wires and the jack socket wire and the earth link wire. You can get wiring diagrams for this online, so I include it on the course, but you don't have to use mine. You can use any fancy wiring you want, but I always check that the jack actually goes in and out before we screw it on, because you can get it on the wrong way round and it might not work. So just checking everything fits, screwing it all on, and then depending on how confident I feel, I might put the cover plate on. Usually I'll leave the cover plate off until I've tested the guitar, and then I'll put it on. So let's see what happens. Obviously I was feeling confident on that particular day. So yeah, 9 out of 10 wiring, it works straight out the back. But sometimes you do have a little niggle, a problem, which you'll have to sort out, especially when you're a beginner. Putting the tuners on is fairly simple. I'm going to use a little clamp just to hold it so it doesn't move while we drill the holes and screw them. So they're drilled, and we put a little bit of wax on each screw as it goes in. That coats the screw and it coats the hole. So it stops moisture rusting the screw, and it stops moisture getting into the wood. So in 20 years time you can take your screw out and it won't snap. Prevents corrosion. So fitting the nut is quite one of the trickiest jobs. The nut is one of the most important parts of the guitar. So when we're getting down to this when we're at this stage, then we're getting down to the final setup. So the guitar's assembled, we're now down to final setup. So what I do is I put the 2 outside strings on, and then just do a quick rough check, and then I can just quickly set the action, and I've got my 2 outside strings on. Just doing a quick setup there. The actual measurements that I use are 24 to 12 thou, or 20 to 10 thou, or thereabouts. That's the thick string to the thin string, but I'll go into all that on the course. With those 2 outside strings on, we can now line up the pickups and mount the pickups. And then we're into the final 3 jobs. There's 3 jobs left. That is setting the action, the intonation. Sorry, we set the action. No, we don't. We set the truss rod. Then we set the action, and then we set the intonation, and then the guitar's done. Wow, and there we are. A few fancy shots that Andy did for us at the end. So, yeah. So when we've got the guitar in tune, we set the truss rod first, then we check it's in tune, then we set the action again, check it's in tune, and then we set the intonation. So if you're not sure about what any of that means, don't worry, I go into it all on the course. To see the full courses, you will have to become a premium member on guitarmaking.co.uk. So the links are all in the description. If you don't want to become a premium member, you can just become a supporter, and then you'll get the free plans to build this guitar and all sorts of other stuff. But if you want access to the full courses, so what I did was I filmed every stage. This was a time-lapse version. We then redid it. I made another film where we filmed it completely in normal speed, and we edited it all. So I took out all my burbling, edited all my burbling out, and it's all very concise. And I think, well, I'd like to think we did a really good job of making a build your own guitar course. We start with a blank piece of paper, drawing the centre line, and you work your way through your design right the way through until you've got a finished instrument. And there's people now all over the world building guitars using my methods, and basically if you learn a few basic simple methods, then you can make any guitar. It doesn't have to be this guitar. This is a basic guitar that I made recently on, this is the Lockdown Lucy time-lapse build, which we haven't decided what we're going to do with yet, but we're going to have to decide pretty soon. We're coming up to 5,000 subscribers, folks. That was a bit of an accident. I only put this channel up really just to show a few promos from my online courses, but people kept subscribing, and now I feel now compelled. There's so many people that I feel like I need to give something back to you guys. So I'm here to support you on your guitar builds, and hopefully if you look in the links down below you can work out how you can support us back. So massive thanks for that. We've got a question, so let's do questions and answers, and then I'm going to show you a couple of brand new Guitar Makers tools that we've got.
Okay, so Super Clunk 6
Super Clunk
says, in your opinion, what is the ideal headstock angle?
So the ideal headstock angle, if you read a book, it will say between 9 and 14 degrees. Sorry, 9 and 12 degrees is optimum. I would say 14 degrees is maximum. Anything less than 9 degrees probably isn't enough. So between 9 and 12 degrees. Now, having said that, I don't care what the neck angle, what the headstock angle is either. I'll tell you why. Because, well, let's say I want a 16 degree headstock angle, because I'm a genius and I've decided that 16 degrees is the optimum angle. So I've ordered my neck blank from a Guitar Maker suppliers. I would always recommend you get your wood from a proper Guitar Maker suppliers, because then you know it's proper dry. Most wood isn't dry enough to work for guitars, it's not stable enough. So if you buy it from a Guitar Maker suppliers, you know it's been like double kilned and it's proper dry. You buy your neck blank and it comes and it's that thick, and it's like, oh, well, I can't get 16 degrees out of this, so I'm scuppered. So in fact, the angle, let me just see if I can find my headstock angle jig. Give me 10 seconds. Headstock angle jig. So this is my headstock angle jig. This angle has evolved over the years to get the optimum angle out of each neck blank. So if I increase the angle any more than that, they don't fit onto a neck blank anyway. So hopefully some of that made some kind of sense. I would aim between 9 and 12 degrees. The most highly angled necks tend to be scarf necks. Let me show you one. So my scarf neck blanks are scarfed at 14 degrees. You can see that, 14 degrees. So if you want to know how I did that, by the way, there's a live stream on the channel. You just need to search for scarf neck guitar. There's another one. So this is 14 degrees. So I've got a jig for making those, which I've showed you how to make. Yeah, scarf necks tend to be a little bit more of an angle. You can get away with that because it's two pieces, so you can actually achieve the angle for a start. But that's plenty strong enough. Any more than 14 degrees, what happens is the strings will pull down too hard into the nut and they'll bind. So when you bend a string, they might catch in the nut. When you release the string, it won't slip back, so you'll end up with a string that's ringing sharp. You get that with a tremolo as well. If you drop the trem and bring it back up, you'll end up with a string that's ringing sharp because it hasn't slipped back fully, because there's too much tension on the nut. If there's not enough tension on the nut, then the string will bounce in the slot and you'll get like a sitar-y sound, which is unpleasant. Which is why that's why you need a headstock angle in the first place, so that your string doesn't bounce in your nut. There needs to be enough angle so the string doesn't bounce. If you end up making a guitar and for whatever reason there isn't enough angle, you can always use a string tree or a string retainer to hold it down. So hopefully that answered your question.
Okay.
Got any more questions?
Yeah, follow up to that was so when you're carving the neck, what thickness do you recommend from the heel to the volute? What thicknesses are you? So this is also super clunk.
So yeah, when I'm carving my necks, I usually aim for about for a standard guitar. I would aim for about 23mm here, 23mm here, at about the 10th or 12th fret, 23 to 21 when I'm carving, and then after sanding, you lose a little bit. So it comes out about, I aim to finish at about 20.5 here to 22.5. 20.5 to 22.5. Okay, there are exceptions to that, and I'll give you, if you're signed up on the course, then there's like a little table which shows you thin neck and normal neck and chunky neck and all that, different measurements. Standard is 23 to 21, and then after sanding it comes out about 1/2 mil thinner. Okay.
Okay, so what Superclunk just replied was that his concern had been about the tension at the nut for the headstock angle. So that's dealt with that, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
it's all about the tension of the string holding down into the nut.
Okay, you've had another couple of interesting questions. One is, what book is there a guitar making Bible that you would recommend? Is there such a thing?
For acoustic guitars, I would recommend the Cumpiano and Natilson book, which is Guitar Making, Tradition and Technology by Cumpiano and Natilson. That's my Bible. The trouble is, it's so hard to negotiate. To find anything in this book is a nightmare. All the information's there, but finding it is a nightmare. So most of the methods I use are actually very, very similar, because I say that's the book I used when I started. But I've kind of developed some of them on a bit. I don't use some of their techniques. I kind of use a lot of my own techniques. I do quite a few things differently. But if you were going to buy a book, I would recommend that. Of course, my main recommendation would be to sign up on the course, because it takes you completely through the process from start to finish. You can see me, we've got 4 cameras, so we get it from every angle. It's edited, so there's no ums and ahs, and I don't waste any of your time. But I show the entire process from start to finish in long form. You can skip through the boring bits if you want, but I've left it in so that you can see every single part of the guitar being made. And it's all laid out logically in order, so it's really easy to find anything. And if there's one thing just in particular you're searching for, it's all searchable. So you just click the search box, search for what you're looking for, and it will come up. So I would recommend my course and the Natilson book. For electric guitars, there isn't really a book that I would recommend. Believe it or not, I was actually asked to write a book once, and it almost happened. That's a subject for another that's a subject for another live stream. It didn't end well, let's say. But there isn't really a book. The one that a lot of people use is the Melvin Hiscox book. So yeah, that's what I would recommend is buy them all. Get them all. That's what I've got them all. I've got as many books as I can get on it, on the subject.
Coffee table.
I've read as many books as I can get hold of. A lot of them tend to be like Carol. You might have heard Carol was saying. A lot of them, they tend to be like coffee table books. So they're full of beautiful pictures, and they all look very clever and everything. But if you try and build a guitar from it, it's nigh on impossible. So having said that, every book I've bought, I've always learned at least one thing from it. So I've got a little library, and I've got all the books, as many as I can get. I'll show you my latest one. So this was for you, James Bissett, is it? So I got this because Is It James Bissett is making a laminated guitar, and he actually found this book, which I hadn't seen before. So obviously, having been alerted to it, I thought I should buy it. So I've gone out and bought it. Yeah, it's not bad. It's good. There's some good tips in there. So if you wanted to make a laminated hollow body, I would certainly recommend you buy a book. But yeah, learn from as many people and places as you can. That's what I did. So I've learned from Trevor Wilkinson, Rob Williams, Patrick Eggle, Tony Davis, Peter Allen. Some of these are the best guitar makers and technicians in the UK and in the world, some of them. I've worked one-on-one with a lot of these guys, and whenever I go to guitar shows, I always like to go around and meet the other makers, and I'm always trying to get as much information as I can out of them. So yeah, but I'm different from most of them, because most of them, they hate sharing all their tips and tricks, whereas I love it. This is what I do. So yeah, this is my job, is teaching other people how to make guitars. So I make guitars, but I also teach. So Carol's got a hand up. Another question?
Okay, well, so there's been quite a bit of discussion about you know, are you going to create a guitar making Bible? But what some the people who are members are saying is that's your website. So that's good. You've got a technical question.
It's a guitar making revolution, folks. Guitarmaking.co.uk. This is the new Bible, the New Testament.
Stop yourself.
It's the New Testament.
Stop yourself. Right. So Rock and Roller 912 says, should the neck on a neck blank, should the grain run from side to side or front to back?
Great question. You want the grain on the side to be as straight as possible, with minimum run out. So run out is what we call when the grain runs out of the front or out of the back. You've effectively got, if your grain's going this way, you've effectively got short grain pieces, and it's easier to snap. So the side grain here wants to be long and straight. On the front face wants to be long and straight, but on the end you want it to be vertical. So can you see that through the wax? Hopefully you can see vertical grain, and that's what we call quarter sawn. Now usually with mahogany it's usually quarter sawn, but with maple's a lot stronger and stiffer, and it's less important. It doesn't really need to be quarter sawn. I'm sure everybody's got a bolt-on style neck, and I bet if you look down the end of it you'll see that it's not actually quarter sawn. Some are, but not always. So it's a lot harder to find quarter sawn maple. So hopefully that answers your question. You want your grain as straight as possible on the front and the side, and on the end quarter sawn. So do we have any more questions before I move on and show you these amazing new guitar makers tools that I've got?
The next question kind of fits with that, and that's Ross has asked.
Hey Russ, welcome.
Are cheaper versions of StewMac tools any good? That was the question.
Yes. Are cheaper versions of StewMac tools any good? Yes, they are. They're okay. They're good. They're obviously not quite as good, but they're perfectly usable. I think what you're talking about really are the Hosco tools, which are made, I think they're made in Japan or China or something, as opposed to the made in the US. Yeah, they're perfectly serviceable. They're just not quite as good. I'd say they're 90% as good. But if you really want the best of the best, it's worth paying a little bit extra for. Depends how many guitars you're going to be making, really, doesn't it? If you're planning on making it your life's work, you really probably want to just wait until you can afford the best ones. Just buy them as you need them. You don't need to buy all the tools at once. So on that subject, let's do it. So chat, thanks for your questions, guys. If you have any more questions, just leave them in the comments and we'll pile them up and we'll answer them next week. So check it out. This is what we've all been looking for. Yes! Finally, we've got curved chisels. Look at that. Can we have a close-up camera, Carol?
Do you know what?
Deej isn't watching, but he
No.
will. He'll watch it back later. So Deej, curved chisels. Check it out.
There we go. Is that a good enough close up?
Look at that. Beautiful. So a curved chisel is really handy for carving the braces, because there's times where you have to reach over other braces. It's plenty sharp. That's going to be a subject for another guitar making tools and techniques that's coming up, how to sharpen your chisel. In fact, I'm going to show you how to make this chisel, but that's going to be in a month or two. If you want to get your hands on one sooner than that, you're also going to need some tools to make it, like a grinding stone and a blowtorch, a really good blowtorch. If you haven't got any of those tools, then you're probably going to be better off buying one. The Guitar Maker's Chisel. We're very pleased and proud to finally be able to provide you with one. Look at that. So I'm just going to demonstrate it in action. If you can switch cameras, Carol, and I'll just move this one over here.
Right. Do you want it on?
Close up cam, please. Now, tar. So check this out. Look at that. That's sharp. So, using a curved chisel like this, it does take a little bit of getting used to if you're used to using a straight chisel. But once you get used to it, it doesn't take long. I can tell you there is nothing else like it for making guitars. Specifically, the only tool I use for carving certain braces, absolutely ideal. But it also has lots of other uses, basically anything that you can use a chisel for. So I always say you don't need to go and buy a whole set of chisels. If you want to make guitars, just buy one good chisel. And if I was starting out, this would be the chisel that I would buy. So we're actually making these in the Bailey workshop. So if you order one of these, if you go to the shop,
You pre-order them. People are asking.
yeah, no, they're available now in the shop.
So you can pre-order them.
Yep. They're going to take about a week to come, guys. So if you order now, it'll come in about a week. All the orders at the moment in the shop are taking about a week because obviously because of on lockdown and everything. So
Some things we can't get.
I appreciate you if you're a bit more patient than normal. Things are taking just a little bit longer than normal because of lockdown and everything, and we have got a little bit of a backlog which we've pretty much cleared. But we do appreciate if you be a bit patient. But I'd highly recommend, if this is what you're into, it's absolutely awesome, guys.
Your little face.
My new favourite chisel.
Super Clunk is asking. He's been good at questions today. He's asking, is it based on a discontinued brand or a discontinued model?
Yeah, are you psychic? Yeah, basically my original chisel I got from Stu Mac. They discontinued it. Otherwise I'd be recommending that you buy it from them. But still, their loss is our gain, eh folks? Beautiful. Close up please, Carol. Don't want my ugly mug. So I mean, with a bit of luck, you can tell even over the internet, you can tell how sharp it is.
Do you like it?
Do I like it? It's my new favourite chisel. This is my new favourite chisel, guys. I've been searching for years for one, but we've never been able to find one. So yeah, so we bit the bullet, and I've tooled myself up for making them. Absolutely gorgeous.
Bill's ordered one.
It's my new favourite chisel.
Bill Flood.
Cheers, Bill.
Thank you.
Cheers, Bill. By the way, it'll be hand sharpened by me
Hey.
when it comes. Handmade by me.
It's turned into the shopping channel.
Yeah, it's a shopping channel for guitars.
Yeah.
Don't know if we can get a focus on that close up.
I can't do anything. Oh yeah. Hold it. That's it.
There we go, look at that.
Ooh.
Mind your fingers, folks. So there you go, Guitar Maker's Curved Chisel, now available from the guitarmaking.co.uk channel website, links in the description, and the Guitar Maker's Rasp. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo! Yes, the search has ended. Finally, we have something resembling my favourite Guitar Maker's Rasp. It's not exactly the same. They're flat on the back, whereas my original one was hollow. Makes them a little bit heavier, but that's actually, I think that's a good thing, because we use gravity as an advantage when we're carving. So a little bit of extra weight I don't think is a bad thing. Awesome. Let's have a close up of that, Carol. Show you the teeth. So yeah.
Oh, there we are.
Guitar Maker's Rasp. Absolutely the best thing for carving necks if you're a beginner. People like to talk about spoke shaves and all that, but a spoke shave is a lot more difficult to use, and you have to learn how to sharpen it. With a rasp, it's a lot more easy to use. Anybody can use it. This will last you a lifetime. I've got one that I've had. Somebody gave me it. It was second hand when I got it, and I'm still using it today, and I've had it 20 years. So I guarantee this will last you a lifetime, unless you mistreat it. So there we go. 2 brand new tools available from guitarmaking.co.uk. Comes with a handle and everything.
Bill Flood's ordered one of them as well.
Cheers, Bill. Bill, we much appreciate it. Yeah, anything that you guys can do support us at the moment is fantastic. We much appreciate it. So there you go. If you found anything useful in that little live stream, please like it and subscribe, share it, tell all your mates, that kind of thing. If you could just get a shot on my face, Carol, just so I could say cheerio. So thanks for watching, guys. Yep, subscribe, like, share and all that kind of stuff. I think that's the courier just come to pick up the parcels. So more stuff on its way to you. Cheers, guys. Remember, measure twice, cut once.